this is my only Pokemon game from Gen 5. Don't get me wrong, I love the Gen 5 Pokemon games. Pokemon White and Pokemon White 2 are two of my favorite Pokemon games of all time. Unfortunately, as I said in my favorite Gen 4 Pokemon video, I lost all of my DS Pokemon games except Pokemon Platinum when I was at an airport many years ago. I was in a rush. I was playing Platinum. I finally beat the Elite Four. I had already beaten Pokemon White. I was at the Elite Four in Pokemon White 2, but I was playing Platinum then because I hadn't beaten the Elite Four there yet. Finally beat the Elite Four, but my DS was my 3DS was on low battery, and I had to board the airplane right then. I was in a panic. I threw my 3DS in my backpack. I ran on the plane. Fortunately, I was able to get through the end credits and save the game before my 3DS's battery died. Unfortunately, I threw my 3DS in my backpack, not my 3DS case. I left my 3DS case in the airport in Michigan. Connection Airport is not something that I can go back the next day and be like, hey, I left this here, did anybody turn it in? And with that 3DS case went virtually all of my DS and 3DS games. I didn't find out about that until a few days later when I wanted to play one of my Pokemon games and I couldn't even get it out. It was really devastating, and the most devastating part about it, without a doubt, the most devastating part about it was losing Pokemon White and Pokemon White 2. Again, two of my favorite Pokemon games. So you might be wondering how I have Pokemon White 2 now. Still haven't beaten it. In fact, only recently I picked it up again to continue playing through it. There's a lot that's been lost in modern Pokemon games compared to White 2, let me tell you that. This has been a great experience going through it again. But, I have this because of a friend. Not the same friend who got me a Diamond version after I lost my Pokemon games, but another friend. This one from the University of Wisconsin-Madison got me White 2 again after I lost my DS games. I'm very grateful for that. I'm really glad that I can play through this game again. Now, Generation 5 is one of my favorite generations of the Pokemon series. Why is that? Well, let's see. Great story. Good music. Up through that point, music in Pokemon games has never been that great, but it's getting better. Really, Gen 6 is where Pokemon starts having a really good soundtrack, but it's okay in Gen 5. Great cast of characters, particularly in White. Not so much in White 2, but White 2 still had a good cast of characters. You know what? Some of my favorite teams I've ever raised in a Pokemon game were in White and White 2. We'll talk about some of the members of those teams in this video. I really love them. I was really sad that they're gone. And I'm really sad that I can't even take those Pokemon and use them in my Gen 6 games or my Gen 7 games. It really is a real shame. It was at the end of Generation 4 that I really started getting into the card game. So, really, most of my time in the Pokemon trading card game was in Generation 5. Generation 5 is when I started going to college. My very first year at the University of Wisconsin-Stevens Point, before I transferred to the University of Wisconsin-Madison. That was when Gen 5 came out. I made a whole bunch of friends just talking about Gen 5. It was really something special, and thinking about all the memories, I mean, that's one of my favorite years of college, hands down, and it's largely thanks to Pokemon, and specifically Generation 5 of Pokemon, that I have that to be thankful for. So, you're hearing this, and you're probably thinking, man, this guy really loves Gen 5! Well, there's one thing I really don't like that much about Gen 5, and that is the Pokemon. Now there are some Generation 5 Pokemon that I absolutely adore. You're gonna hear me get really excited about some on my top 5 list. But most of the Generation 5 Pokemon were filler. Now in Pokemon White, that's totally great. I don't dock Pokemon White or White 2 any points for that, because the whole idea in Generation 5 was sort of a new beginning. Pokemon White was the first Pokemon game, the very first Pokemon game since Blue version, where, well, I guess technically since Yellow version, where all of the Pokemon in the game were new Pokemon. I mean, you've got to find some old Pokemon in the post-game, but all the Pokemon we were playing through the game were new Pokemon. So they had a whole bunch of niches that had to be filled that were previously filled. So you know what, that's okay. I don't mind the filler Pokemon. I don't mind the Pokemon that feel kind of like copies of older Pokemon. That's okay, because they had to do that to do what they wanted to do. My problem is that most cases, the original Pokemon is still better and more interesting than the copy. And there are a lot of Pokemon in Gen 5 that aren't necessarily uninspired, but aren't that interesting or aren't that cool. Don't get me very excited. Like, it's not on this list, but like Liepard, for example, or Purloin just really don't grab me. There's really nothing going on there. There's nothing bad about them, but they're just sort of unmemorable. Their design is a little off-putting. In fact, what is actually true is that for a long while, I thought that Generation 4 was my least favorite generation, but in Gen 5, that was the first time that I went through and I ranked every single Pokemon ever made in a master document, so that I could say, without forgetting any of those forgettable Pokemon, who are my favorite Pokemon, who are my least favorite Pokemon, who do I have mixed feelings about, stuff like that. And when I did that list, I ran a whole bunch of stats on it, and I found out that, as it happens, Gen 5 is actually my least favorite generation. Not because there's a lot of Pokemon that I hate in Gen 5. You'll see in this list that most of the Gen 5 Pokemon aren't Pokemon that I hate, they're just Pokemon that I find a little off-putting, or I don't really have too much feelings about them. They're mostly unmemorable. The reason why I like Gen 5 the least is because Gen 5 was the largest generation, and all those unmemorable Pokemon bloated up so large that it drags the whole generation down. So there aren't Pokemon that I really hate in Generation 5. There's one, maybe two, that I really do hate. But all the unmemorable Pokemon, all the sort of bland designs, compared to other previous Pokemon designs, sort of drags the things down. So even though some Generation 5 Pokemon are like some of my favorite Pokemon of all time, it is one of my least favorite generations. Not anymore. No, a newer generation has topped Gen 5 for my least favorite generation as far as Pokemon go. But at least up to Gen 5, Pokemon-wise, it was my least favorite. So you may then be wondering, who are my favorite and who are my least favorite Generation 5 Pokemon? Well, if we were to round out this top 6 into a top 10, these are the Pokemon that would fill out the rest of my top 10 least favorite Generation 5 Pokemon, and these are the Pokemon that would fill out my top 10 favorite Generation 5 Pokemon. There's a lot of Pokemon there I wish I could talk about. I really love some of these Generation 5 Pokemon. But with all of that said, let's get started with my 6th least favorite Pokemon from Generation 5.
Petilil is like a discount Oddish. It has always looked kind of weird to me, although I'm not sure why. It just doesn't look very inspired, and it is hard to get excited about Petilil even though I like its evolution Lilligant. Petilil overall is just a bland Pokemon. Braviary is such a cool Pokemon. I don't have much more to say about it beyond its design because I only lightly used one in the Gen 5 games, but I am really looking forward to having one on my team in Pokemon Ultra Sun. As an American, I naturally have a lot of patriotism beaten into me. I think it is really, really cool how Braviary combines our country's national mascot with American symbolism, but the design really takes things to the next level because it also integrates aspects of Amerindian cultures. In that way, Braviary is the most representative Pokemon of North America out of all of the Pokemon from Unova, the country based on the United States. It's just so cool looking, and I think it is decent in battle, so this is a Pokemon I really look forward to getting to know better. I don't really dislike Woobat, but I don't have much affinity for it. The animal it is based off of is actually really cute, but I think Woobat is more dopey looking. I've never really understood why it is a psychic Pokemon. Because it is a psychic Pokemon, it has the same typing in the card game as Zubat, which does not help to set this Pokemon apart from the other Chiropteran in the franchise. What I can say for Woobat, though, is that Game Freak did a much better job implementing it into the Pokemon games. Unlike Zubat, Woobat are unintrusive and do not overwhelm you as you are trying to make your way through a cave. It's not hard to like Golurk. What a great concept for a ghost Pokemon! I used a Golurk as part of my rather large team in Pokemon White and had a very good time with it. In particular, I really liked that it could use Fly, as that let me free up my Archeops to do other things. It is a little surprising that Golurk is not a fighting type Pokemon. While Ground is certainly a fitting type for Golurk, its design screams fighting type, and some of its moves like Hammer Arm make it feel like you're fighting with an ancient giant warrior. I'm a massive Studio Ghibli fan, so my favorite thing about Golurk is that it really brings to mind the ancient robots from Hayao Miyazaki's film Castle in the Sky. When I use it, I can't help but feel like I am in a Ghibli film. Ferrothorn is pretty cool, but Ferroseed just doesn't capture me with its design. I always feel pretty unhappy whenever I look at it. Because of its typing, it is also very difficult to take down when you don't have a fire attack on you. Ferroseed has given me more than its fair share of trouble in my current playthrough of Pokemon White 2, and honestly, this is one Pokemon I wish didn't exist. It's always difficult to figure out whether Keldeo is an Ibex or a Unicorn, but either way, it is my fourth favorite Pokemon from Generation 5. It is without a doubt my favorite mythical Pokemon. Like Kyogre in Pokemon Sapphire, Keldeo is a rare example of a legendary or mythical Pokemon that I actually used as a main member of my team. In this case, in both my original and my current playthroughs of Pokemon White 2. Unlike the other three Musketeer Pokemon, a theme that I adore by the way, Keldeo is cute, but it manages to hit that sweet spot between cute and cool that lets it fit any occasion without feeling out of place. I can't deny that it looks great and plays great in battle. Keldeo is a really weird but awesome design choice for a water fighting Pokemon and is one of Generation 5's finest members. The Resolute form is better than its regular form. There's a lot to dislike about Watchog. It is a surprising powerhouse early on in the game, which makes it rather difficult to fight. The safety vest design is unimaginably dumb when you think about it, and it is too unrealistic for my tastes. There are two things that I particularly can't stand about Watchog, though. First, its whack-a-mole shape makes it look really awkward both in its artwork and in the game. It's just too stiff and stick-like. Second, its stare is really unnerving, and thinking about Watchog makes me very uncomfortable. It is really menacing. The combination of the stare and the posture makes Watchog a very unnatural and off-putting Pokemon that does not fit well in the Pokemon universe, almost like there's something deeply wrong and malevolent about it. What a disappointment for a meerkat or prairie dog Pokemon. I took a chance on Beheeyem, and it really paid off. I was in the Celestial Tower in Pokemon White, hunting for a Litwick to evolve into Chandelure, when I came across an LGM and decided to give the Pokemon a shot. I was not disappointed. I named my LGM Marvin. You'd think I was naming it after Marvin the Martian, but actually I named it Marvin because it looked kinda like Marvin from the film adaptation of Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. Beheeyem looks like something else. With its trench coat and fedora-like body appearance, it could pass as a number of things, but to me it is most evocative actually of the man in the yellow hat from Curious George, and that's really cool. Marvin was a great member of my team in Pokemon White, and one of the first Pokemon for me to have Learn, Recover, and Charge Beam. I actually did not have an electric Pokemon in Pokemon White, so without Beheeyem, I would not have gotten out of a lot of late game jams. Marvin is one of those Pokemon that make it such a pity to me that I lost my DS Pokemon games. I really miss him. Ladies and gentlemen, mesdames et messieurs, it is that time again. Here we have another generic water Pokemon on my worst list, this time Basculin. Basculin just doesn't scratch the itch a bass Pokemon could. Honestly, I actually always think of Basculin as a Barracuda, and it doesn't scratch that itch either. I do think it is kind of cool that Basculin is one of the Unova Pokemon, given that bass fishing is so popular in the United States, but that's really the only positive thing I can say about it. It is ugly, doesn't even evolve, and is unmemorable in battle. When I first saw the Gen 5 Pokemon, I knew I would have to get a Chandelure and name it Valentina. As you previously heard, in Pokemon White I started hunting for a Litwick with the right ability as soon as I got to Celestial Tower. The problem was that I already had a fire Pokemon, Victini, and very soon after I got another Pokemon, Golurk, that filled a better niche being part ground type, a typing that I didn't have. So while I did get my Chandelure and loved using it in battle, it wound up being relegated to my reserve team. This thing is so cool though. It's a really great concept for a Will-O-Wisp Poltergeist Pokemon. Its look feels like something taken straight out of a stop-motion Tim Burton film, which is a cool vibe for a ghost Pokemon to have. I also really love Chandelures, so I was very happy when I saw that this was the evolved form of Lampent. My friends also came up with a great name for Chandelure, Chandelite, which they came up with before we knew Chandelure's English name. In fact, they came up with that name to mock this Pokemon, but I quite like it. This Pokemon even got to be in Pokémon Tournament, and is honestly my favorite Pokemon to appear in that game. Problem is, Chandelure got a really annoying voice in Pokémon Tournament. That doesn't change how much I love this Pokemon though. The little baby orangutan crossed with a Daruma doll is my least favorite Generation 5 Pokemon. I really hate this thing. It is ugly and not that great of a Pokemon, but that's not the real problem. This thing easily has the grossest Pokédex entry, and I just can't get past that. I have many years of training in biology, and I know and am comfortable with the idea that animals pass food waste that they can't digest. What my problem is, though, is that the writers of the Pokédex entries went out of their way to tell us that Darumaka's claim to fame, its quirk that makes it stand out from all the other Pokemon, is that its droppings are so hot that people will put them in their pockets to stay warm. It's so gross. Even with Grimer and Muck out there, this to me is the grossest Pokemon, because Game Freak and the Pokemon Company wanted to make sure that I knew, without a doubt, that this is the Pokemon who has hot poop. How revolting. This Pokemon is the bee's knees. You cannot tell me that Archeops is not one of the coolest things to come out of Generation 5. This was the very first fossil Pokemon to be based on a carnivorous dinosaur, one very closely related to birds no less, and they just really delivered. I was hugely skeptical of Archon and Archeops when I first read about them. Their abilities sounded like Slacking or Regigigas level of crippling. But I said, okay, I always try to have a fossil Pokemon on my team, so I'll give this one a shot. And you know what? It was freaking awesome. I demand that you teach this Pokemon acrobatics. It's like the move was made for it. This Pokemon is so fun to use with its combination of high risk and high reward. It hits other Pokemon like a Death Star Super Laser, but let it take too much damage, and it becomes nearly worthless until it can use Roost. You gotta hit Pokemon hard, and you gotta hit them fast. Archeops is probably the most fun I have ever had using a Pokemon in battle. My Archeops Archie in Pokemon White was my favorite member of one of my favorite Pokemon teams I've ever played through a game with. I channeled it with my Aerodactyl in Pokemon X, and am strongly considering double dipping with it in Pokemon Ultra Sun. I don't care that the jump to 3D butchered how Archeops looks in the games. This thing is awesome and easily is one of my top Pokemon of all time. So, there you have it. Those were my 5 favorite and least favorite Pokemon introduced in Pokemon Black and Pokemon White. Generation 5 had a lot of winners, and I wish I could talk more about some other ones, like Volcarona or Sigilyph. It also had a lot of duds, though, and so even though I wish I could say it is one of my favorite sets of Pokemon, it is really one of my least favorite overall. I won't lie though, I still get excited every time a Generation 5 Pokemon shows up in one of the newer Pokemon games. It always takes me back to a time when I looked forward to the new Pokemon with optimism and excitement, rather than disappointment. I suppose that will give you a taste of what lies ahead of us as we move into Generations 6 and 7. As always, thank you very much for watching my video, and if you have anything you would like to add or any stories from Generation 5 you would like to share, please let me know in the comment section below. If you liked my video, please give me a like. Regardless, have a wonderful rest of the day, and if you live in the Northern Hemisphere, stay warm.